Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting for the town of Berlin for Monday, December 13th, 2021. Before we begin, the town administrator will advise us of the COVID precautions that we have in place and available to everybody in attendance.
If everyone would, on the back table, raise your hand, Jimmy. Okay, the table where Jimmy's sitting, there are masks if needed. The hand sanitizer if needed. The facility, the restroom is out in the hallway. Behind that closed door, there is hot water, there is soap, and there are paper towels. When you leave this evening, you all came in through the stairwell. You can go out at any time, just hit the panic bar on the door, and free to go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, please join us for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the first item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes for the regular session of November 8th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember Orris.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Nur. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the minutes for the regular session of November 8th, 2021 passed unanimously. Before we go into agenda item number 2, the mayor and council have an exciting announcement. It's going to be delivered by our town administrator this evening.
Jimmy, if you would come forward in front of the table with the 3 council members. I think folks know Jimmy or seen Jimmy. If you've not, welcome Jimmy, okay? Jimmy has been employed with the town now for just a little over 10 months. He's been employed as the superintendent of public works. This evening, the mayor and council have graciously promoted Jimmy to the director level. So let's welcome Jimmy.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your service and look forward to your duties as the director. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is the appointment of Taylor Bakke to the Housing Board of Review. And I am making the recommendation to the council this evening. Taylor originally applied for the Historic District Commission. However, other applicants were selected for that role, and Taylor, with his experience in real estate, I think could be an asset to the Housing Board of Review. And we are making that recommendation for a 3-year term this evening.
Motion to approve. Taylor?
So I have a motion by Councilmember Nur.
Second.
Yes, Councilmember Nur.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Orris. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And abstaining?
I'm not opposed, I'm abstaining, he's my nephew.
Thank you. So let the record reflect that Councilmember Nur made the motion, Councilmember Orris seconded, Councilmember Nichols and Burrell voted in favor, and Councilmember Purnell abstained from the vote. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing on ordinance 2021-04, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Berlin, amending chapter 22 titled Parks and Recreation, article 3, section 22-49, titled Rules and Regulations to Prohibit Smoking in Town Parks. And the town attorney, David Gaskell, is going to run a point on that.
Mr. Mayor, it's really rather simple. We're just adding a rule to the parks that prohibit smoking or vaping of tobacco products, medical marijuana, illegal substances, or any other substance in the town park.
Thank you. So we will open up the public hearing on this ordinance 2021-04. If anybody would like to approach the mayor and council and speak regarding the ordinance. And we're also taking comment via Facebook or no? Not for,
No.
Okay, so it's just public comment. So we'll keep it open for a moment. All right. Seeing no public comment, we will close the hearing for ordinance 21-04 and entertain any questions or a motion from the council.
I make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-04.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Purnell to approve ordinance 2021-04 and a second by Councilmember Burrell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And let the record reflect that ordinance 2021-04 passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 4 is a discussion in reference to short-term rentals. Can you hear me better? Okay, there we go. I apologize. The discussion for short-term rentals, you have some items that we have discussed previously that have been summarized nicely by our planning and zoning director, Dave Engelhardt. The purpose of the discussion this evening is really to see what points the council would like to see included in a drafted ordinance before we get Dave Engelhardt and Dave Gaskell to begin sharpening their pencils and crafting an ordinance for short-term rentals. So I will open that up for discussion by the council if you don't mind.
The things listed in our packet in the bullet point, we've already been added to the ordinance?
No, so there was an ordinance that was previously drafted. We looked at that in conjunction with some of the discussions that we've had. I just wanted us to kind of nail down the points that everybody would like to see in the ordinance before it's even amended or reconstructed. So if anybody has anything that's not listed or wants to see something that is listed, definitely added to that ordinance. I would think we would all like to hear that.
Yeah, I definitely want to see the section about violations.
The section concerning violations.
That's the fourth bullet point down, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
Under the changes, additions, corrections to the draft ordinance 2020-03 could include. It's the fourth bullet point down.
Thank you. Do you want to read that aloud for everybody that's in attendance this evening, just so that?
The violations section, or?
Well, the violations is draft item 8E,
Right.
violations. Should have language added to enable appeals of violations or suspension of license before the Board of Housing, or Housing Board of Review pursuant to the existing town code.
Right.
So, are there any other items that this council would like to see added?
Does I know this came up before, does the draft of the draft have a 30-minute contact individual? I think we talked about it last discussion of this.
So we talked about.
I believe so, but if it doesn't, we'll make sure it's in there.
All right, thank you.
Within 30 minutes of the location.
Yes.
So the recommendation.
30 minutes is enough. I'm sorry, I was just asking the chief if he thought that kind of notification was enough, just based on his experience.
30 minutes
Or
is
somebody-
a general, and the big thing is upon notification, they give us a response with the proper time of arrival on scene. So it's not actually, generally when you speak of 30 minutes, it's not advising everybody somebody has to be there in 30 minutes. They can contact us in a timely manner, advise us.
So Councilmember Morris, are you saying that you are looking for a response, like is it via phone within 30 minutes or on site within 30 minutes?
I thought we discussed on site. But.
If you're in Ocean City trying to get
Yeah, we
here,
will, but, I mean, contact is sufficient.
Right.
Thank
and
you.
sometimes the situation can actually be resolved via phone.
Okay, then I'm fine with that, thank you.
So just to clarify for the discussion, a 30-minute response as in ability to get in touch with somebody within 30 minutes.
Yes.
So the license inside the first bullet point, the draft item to license inside and outside, are we talking about the actual paper license or on the outside in the window or the medallion kind of thing? What is it? Or that's not specific?
I think the discussion was in reference to whether or not they should need a license to operate in the town, and then two, whether or not that needs to be visibly displayed on the property.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, are we, when we're talking about the visibility, it says inside and outside. So inside the house, for clarity, is going to be this, inside, right? And on the outside, what's it gonna be?
I think you could do it, it's just the license itself, similar to what we have for our business licenses. If you walk into one of the businesses on Main Street, the placards on, usually in a frame on the wall. So you could post that inside, you could also post it outside.
Okay.
You can go the extra step of getting a medallion, if you will, but, and that's minimal cost. I checked into that. I think I got a quote, a medallion like we used to have the Mylar stickers, we used to call them top finders. You put in the second floor windows so the fire company knew where children might be sleeping if there was a fire.
Right.
That type of thing could be put, and the cost of those is minimal. It's like I wanna say it was $1.40 a piece. So, that could be part of the licensing fee, and we would have one that we could issue. But I figured with the license itself posted, yours is license number 001, mine's license number 002. If there was public comment or complaints, they could form a report based on, I had violations at, or the police, if it was late at night for noise, could say, license number 002 had a problem on Saturday, the 10th of the month at 2 a.m., and they would report it to me, and then we would talk to the owner of the property. So I think it's better if we have them post them inside and out, the license itself. Could be something simple, just a short-term rental, Berlin license number 2021-002.
Similar to what we do for the business license.
Correct.
I don't have a problem with that. In my mind, I'm just thinking, and I tend to think real hard about things. But thinking, I don't wanna see it get mixed up or caught up. If it looks similar to that, I don't want it to be something that's bigger, say like when you're doing your, permitting or whatever, you know what I'm saying? You're putting your business like when you're remodeling or whatever, don't you put those in the window too? So I don't wanna see that being someone having, oh, well, I'll just put that there because, not saying that someone would do something unlawful or something that would, but I don't want them to be mixed up. Just have them be able to be distinguished
Between a permit for building.
Exactly.
Versus, so the Berlin business license almost looks like a certificate. It's printed on specific paper.
Right.
And each year when a business renews, it's a different number each year.
Okay.
So then we reissue the business license every year.
So it's going to look, okay, so it would look.
Right. And obviously, Dave and I will work together on the design of that. Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that you would like to see a license posted inside of the building with a license number that correlates with a visual license that is affixed to the outside in some way, typically like a sticker, with the same license number on both for cross-reference.
That sounds like,
Okay.
but to be able to be distinguished as a license versus
Correct.
being mixed up size-wise, whatever with those other things. That could be in a window, notices or whatever.
Are there any other points that the council would like to see within that draft ordinance?
Bullet point 2, again, I think that's, would be good to incorporate into the ordinance. Even though it is in the town code, it just mimics it, but just reinforces it.
Now, Dave, I believe Dave Engelhardt, we had a discussion as it relates to the floor space. Was there a need to amend a portion of the code, or was this exactly what's written already?
That's what's in our code already.
Okay.
What we define a bedroom or sleeping quarters as.
All right, so far I have information about the violations, the 30-minute response, the licensing inside and a visual outside, the occupancy limits within the town code, Anything else? All right.
I'd like to make sure that everybody acknowledges the letter that's provided to you on the dais from Ms. Carol Jenkins.
So that's also one thing that we don't have within here. The draft of this ordinance, is there a specific recommendation as to whether they should be owner occupied or just a 30-minute? I think we've discussed the 30-minute response time. Does this body feel passionately about any particular direction?
Mr. Mayor, I think that if there's no more comments from the council, if you would permit comments from the floor for anyone that's here.
Of course. And we can open that up to anyone that's in attendance that would like to address the mayor and council. Just come forward if you don't mind. Please state your name and property address, and then if you have something that's on your mind as it relates to short-term rentals, we would like to hear that.
Mayor, Council, John Watson, 102 West Buckingham Road. Good to see everybody tonight. I just wanted to just chime in. It sounds like you guys are on a good track on a lot of the things that you're looking to do. I was not at the last council meeting where I heard there was a lot of people that were against the notion of having Airbnbs or short-term rentals. I just want to say that I am for it. I think anything that promotes our community and promotes our town, I think is a good thing in general. Being somebody that uses Airbnbs when I travel, I know there's a lot of rules and regulations that they already built within their own platform with reviews, and people are like, really, they're not going to rent again to somebody who doesn't, respect their home or their residency. So I think it's overall a good program. The other thing, as far as snowbirds or how long you have to live in the community, I don't see a difference too much if somebody lives at the house 80 days a year or 365. They're still paying city taxes. It's still their property. It's still their home. They still have a vested interest in making sure that it's being maintained properly. So my point of view would just be if you own the residence, you pay your taxes, you want to rent it out as an Airbnb, and you're respectful to the community, I don't see any major problem or issue with that. The only other thing I would add is, I know that probably everybody could probably point to a circumstance where somebody rented their home and there was a party and something bad happened, but quite honestly, that can happen with any town and any home and any community at any given time. I can tell you from a personal experience, I had a neighbor that lived behind me, behind my property. It was a young boy. He had, and the chief might remember this situation about a year or 2 years ago. He was shooting BB guns in his yard and in his house. The BB went through his property, went into the neighbor's home. The next thing I knew, that there was about 20 police cars out in front of his house. So he's a permanent resident, but doesn't necessarily mean he was a good one. So it kind of goes all both ways. So I really think that you guys are doing good work here. I would just say let's keep our community open to whoever would like to come here. Maybe they'll be a future resident. And the other thing is, too, I found out that it's only $10 for the licensing fee. So if you wanted to kind of maybe cut out some of the, for lack of a better word, anybody who maybe just wants to put their home out there, I think you could bump that up. I think any person that has an Airbnb in this community would pay a lot more than that to invest in their home to make sure that, it's adequate for the community, that the people that are coming in. So $10 seems like nothing. Anybody could do that. Make it $200, make it $300, make it $500. Check in on the property, make sure everything's going okay. I don't think anybody that's renting their homes would have an issue or a problem with that. So there could be some extra revenue for the town. So that's pretty much it. Just wanted to say that, and hope you guys consider, keeping everything going good for our town, which is a really great place to live. So thank you guys.
Thank you for sharing that. Just a point of clarity, I'm pretty sure we don't have a fee at all associated with this yet. What I think you're referring to is the rental licensing fee in general, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And, you know, I'll address a couple of things that Mr. Lawson said. The draft that we
Watson,
had,
sorry, Watson. That's
that
okay.
we're talking about editing tonight a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, that draft was written by, the town attorney, Dave Gaskell, and myself. We collaborated. He did most of the work, I'll say that. Except for some other particulars with the code. But the annual license fee we proposed was $200.
Okay.
An initial, application fee was $150, because we incur costs to inspect each unit that wants to be a short-term rental. And that's a one-time fee. The annual fee is $200. Okay, and as far as the 180-day requirement, we had in here that a permanent residence means a dwelling unit located within the town of Berlin in which the owner resides for an aggregate of at least 180 days annually. And the dwelling unit carries the official designation as the owner's principal residence in accordance with the criteria governing the State of Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation Homestead Tax Credit Program. And the idea for that was that we didn't have an investor or a group of investors buy 6 or 7 homes all in a row on one street, and now the integrity of that single-family residence districts, the R1 or the R2, is completely altered. Instead of it being single-family homes for families, as we know it in Berlin, that was the idea. So that doesn't prohibit you as a homeowner, being a snowbird, as you say, from going to Florida for 6 months or 10 months. But that's your principal residence as far as SDAT, as far as the assessor's office down in Snow Hill is concerned, and the state. So that was just the minimum safeguard we could have, because municipalities all around the country have said the fabric of their towns have been destroyed by piles of money coming in and buying neighborhoods and buying sections to make them destination towns or destination cities. We're already that. You know, we know that from our success with being American School, a small town. So that was one measure, a little bit of protection for the neighborhoods. And that's certainly still up for discussion. That certainly could be altered in the draft, or it could remain in the draft. So I'm just trying to remind the mayor and council of that too. That was a talking point the previous 2 meetings we had on this, and maybe it needs to still be a talking point.
The only other thank you for clarifying that. My only other point thinking about that is, would it make more sense to say, and I get your example completely of buying 6 or 7 properties, but maybe instead of it being where you have to be here at least 6 months, maybe the solution is you can't have multiple units, perhaps. Because I do think there's people that will invest in a home down here and like flip it, for example, and maybe they live in Ocean City or they live on the other side of the Delaware line, and maybe they don't live in that house for 180 days, but they still have a very vested interest in that property. They wouldn't have 6 or 7 of them, but they might have 1. So it's just something that you might want to consider, because I do think you have some community residents that maybe are only here a couple months of the year, maybe they only come down on weekends, and a majority of the year they're renting it out, and you might be excluding some people who you maybe don't need or don't want to intend to exclude it. So that's just a point of view, I think, to share.
Anybody else that's in attendance this evening that would like to address the mayor and council? Come forward, just name and property address if you don't mind.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gabrielle Sargent, and I am at 23 Westminster. Can you guys hear me okay? This on? Yeah? Okay, cool.
I'm sorry, could I just clarify your last name?
Sure, it's Gabrielle Sargent.
Sargent?
Yes. And if it's okay, I just want to provide a little bit of color, because I am here to address specifically the principal residence piece of this. I wasn't in attendance in the last meeting, and I just, I heard a lot of the opinions, so I also, similar to Mr. Watson, just want to provide a little bit of color. So I am a new resident of Berlin, or I should say a new homeowner. So my husband and I actually, we live in North Baltimore County, but I have family that lives in Berlin. My sister's lived here for over 20 years, and so I have visited the town and have really fallen in love, and unfortunately, just because of work, don't have the ability to live here. My husband has a job in North Baltimore County, so having the opportunity to own a home here in Berlin recently came up. So, my brother-in-law, my sister, have a home right behind them. The home was available, came for sale, and we considered buying the property so that we had a place to stay. I have 2 young boys, so we come down, a place to stay, when we're visiting the beaches, and an opportunity for us to live closer to, our sons can be closer to their cousins. We're not in a position to own 2 homes, and so the opportunity to be able to have a short-term rental is essentially what allows us to pay for the house so that we can have the short-term rental, use it when we're in town, and then essentially we can make money and obviously pay some of the expenses and the costs. So we did a lot of research before making this decision. Some of that included reaching out to Councilman Orris, as well as reaching out to Dave. I think you met my husband, you and I corresponded. But honestly, the most amount of research that we did was specifically on Airbnb, which I think most people know is, the biggest, most common site that people are using for rentals. And there was one thing that really, really stood out when I looked at the Airbnb, specifically in Berlin. So a couple of things. First off, the reviews are absolutely outstanding. So the people that you guys have in this town that are currently renting their homes are creating a really remarkable experience for people that are coming to Berlin. If you pull it up, you can see right now that the average review of somebody coming to Berlin, they're voting, it's a 4.8 out of a 5-star review. So, hands down, people are really having great experiences here. They're talking a lot about like who they are. It's really young families. It's people saying, hey, my grown daughters and I, my elderly parents, we no longer can camp in Assateague, so, we're staying in this home. They're not young people coming here to party, right? Like I spent all my summers here coming to Ocean City, Maryland. I think if you're a young person looking to have a good time, no offense, Berlin doesn't seem like the kind of place for that. So, and a lot of families, a lot of young families, if you have young kids, which I do, I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, staying at hotels is not convenient, it's not safe. So staying in a home that has, all the conveniences, it has a fenced-in backyard, that's what people look for, right? It's better for small families, with families with small children, and that's what the renters are saying. That's the experience that your hosts here in Berlin are creating. And then what they're saying, they're talking about it being quaint, and frequently almost half the reviews are saying, talking about the quiet neighborhood. And that is what they want. They want to come here. They want to experience, cozy, quaint. And then, of course, you've got the big piece of it, which is that they're coming to the downtown. They're spending money. They're going to the Atlantic Hotel. They're going to Blacksmith's. They're naming the restaurants. They're shopping. They're, investing into the town. So overall, I concluded that this was a really good decision because it seemed to me like the people coming to the community were adding to the community. They were spending money, they were having positive experiences, they're writing positive reviews, they're sharing with people how much they enjoy the town, and it just seemed to me like, hey, I want to be part of this. Honestly, they've set the bar really high. That's what they've done. And so, when my husband and I renovated the home, we kept that in mind. We made the choice to, do things nice and really, put in some extra money to make sure that the type of person that we would attract would be, really quality renters. So, with that being said, there is some concerns with the discussion around it being, the principal residence, because we're not. Our primary residence is in North Baltimore County, and we come down often. We were here, we stayed last weekend. It was my father's 80th birthday, so we stayed there. So we use the home, but we're not going to be there. I think you said 180 days or 100 days? Is that what it is?
It's 180 by the state.
Okay, got it. That's what the state, right, okay. So we're not going to meet those standards, and that would mean that we wouldn't be able to continue to use the rental, essentially. So with all of that being said, and again, my husband and I put a lot of effort into this, and so it's just unfortunate that we just got done. We just got ready to rent it, and then obviously this is coming up, but we understand this is how things work. So I think where we're coming from, definitely feel like the increase in the costs, that makes sense, because I do agree with all the regulations that you're talking about. Do an inspection, make sure that people are properly, if it only is supposed to be for 4 guests, make sure that that's what they're renting. Make sure that they don't have overuse of the property. All of that definitely makes sense. As Mr. Watson mentioned, I'd be willing to pay, up to $500, whatever it is, to make sure that those inspections are happening and people continue to uphold the standards that they have in Berlin. The second thing really, like I mentioned, increasing the fees. The main thing too is just really about equal regulation. I think there's just a little bit of heartburn about how R1 and R2 is being looked at differently. It sounds like it's kind of like protection of the single family and maybe not so much, outside of the single family area. So it just, I think that there can be problems if you're not regulating things equally. So if you're gonna have certain standards in R1 and R2, it really should kind of be equal. It doesn't really make sense. If we say Airbnbs hurt the fabric, then why is it okay to hurt the fabric in one place and not the other? It just seems like it should be, consistent. And then just monitor. Again, I can't say enough about how outstanding your current Airbnb rentals are. They've done a great job. They run really successful businesses that seem to be really good for the town. So you regulate it. And since you have to renew the license every year, then if there's violations or complaints, you don't renew it. And it just really seems that simple. So that would be my recommendation. And again, having somebody available within 30 minutes, that seems reasonable. I don't know, again, why you have to live here 100 days. That doesn't make you more or less available to be available in 30 minutes. So I guess that's something I'm not 100% understanding. But
No, it's a contact point.
Contact point, to be available within 30 minutes, right?
You would have an agent to answer the phone.
Right.
Within 30 minutes.
Got it.
Or yourself.
Right, so if I have that, but I don't live here 100 days, I guess that's where I don't connect the two
In your
necessarily.
situation, it'd be your brother next door, or you would have a management company, one of the two.
Right, so somebody who can return a call within 30 minutes.
And actually come here if needed would be the management company.
Got it, right, exactly, okay. Got it, understood, so, and that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in attendance that would like to address the mayor and council about our discussion so far about short-term rentals? All right, so I would like to summarize to make sure I've understood the.
It was a real good point, Ron, about ownership of multiple units. I would like to see the draft include some type of language restricting the ownership of more than one unit, and just see how that is received by the public during the public hearing.
And then to be clear, Mr. Durrell, then eliminate the language on the fact that it has to be your primary residence, and limit it by saying only one property can be licensed by the same owner at any time.
If you are saying a person can have only one primary resident, that would suffice. But I think it needs to be, because the point was brought up, I think it needs to be included some kind of way, so that can be a part of the public discussion.
So that would be in the R3 and R4 districts. The R1 and R2 is already covered by having owner occupied.
Well, that's kind of what I'm asking this evening, is that we've talked about a whole different scope of many different directions with this. So what I would like to hear, so that we're not putting all the burden on Dave and Dave to try and find what we want, I want to hear what this body is looking for, so that when we go back and sharpen the pencil to draft an ordinance, we are producing something that this body would like to see.
I was just trying to clarify.
I would like to see restrictions put on the number of dwellings a person can have here in the town of Berlin.
So
now, how we do that is entirely up to.
So what I would think, and of course I'll be talking to Mr. Gaskell about it some more, but what I would think is then, are you saying you would limit how many homes for short-term rental I could have to
Yes.
one?
Yes.
And I could live on the next street? That's a whole different thing. I'm not doing short-term rental where I live but I can have, so you, in other words, you're saying, and I don't know if we can do this legal, we'll have to find out, but that someone coming into town buying different homes, he can't do that use
But for.
but one time in town, at a time, is that right?
Yes. Thanks, Dave.
Can I ask, what are we trying to address there with that?
I'm trying to address like the, it was an example given where somebody would come in and buy a block of homes that would substantially change that neighborhood.
That was the reason for that provision that we use, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation's definition of a principal residence. And that's something that, I believe Mr. Gaskell could correct me, but that was a provision that he brought to my attention from the city of Baltimore. Where you would think there would be rows and streets of the row houses that are famous in town that would be used for this purpose, especially downtown, because that's their tourist hub. But yeah, it has to be your primary residence in the city of Baltimore. So I was surprised by that when he said that. But,
So the primary residence,
the
primary resident in inclusion would prohibit what I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Primary resident for 180 days will prohibit multiple.
But in the case of Ms. Sargent, that penalizes her in her particular case.
Correct.
In most cases.
Do we have any place, because nothing's in existence right this moment, do we have any areas in town where there are multiple short-term rentals in a row that we know of?
No.
Owned by the same people.
That we know of.
That I know of, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I mean,
can
it's
interrupt
conceived.
Can I interrupt real quick? I've got a couple, folks that have reached out to me. Let's speak into the mics. Apparently they can't hear it, huh?
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm trying.
So, the question that I just asked was, do we have any, because there are no regulations currently on short-term rentals in the town of Berlin. And what I was asking was, are there any places that we know of where you see consecutive home after home owned by, or operated as a short-term rental?
Or more than one in a neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
Well, that,
one owner, you're saying.
Wait a minute.
yes.
What's,
so my question was,
more than one owner
Yeah,
renting out their houses?
the
or more than
example-
one in a neighborhood?
no, the example that was given was that we don't want, or there is not a, developer wanting to come in and produce
Exactly.
6 homes in one spot, or a row of homes that are being used as short-term rentals. And my question was, do we have that in existence now, since there are no regulations on short-term rentals? And what I'm hearing is that's not the case that we know of.
Do we have,
That may be the case today.
Correct.
but do we have any
But what
owners?
about the case tomorrow if we don't put some type regulation in effect to prohibit just that?
I think the question that I have differs from what the mayor's asking. Currently, I think what I'm hearing you say is, do we have one owner having multiple houses in one neighborhood, right?
That's what I
My question is, do we have more than one owner with multiple properties in the town of Berlin that's
Yes.
renting them? That's my concern.
They
I
may
don't-
not be all in a row, they may not be on the same street,
Exactly,
but
that's my concern right there. If you have one owner with multiple scattered peppered throughout the town, that's the issue that I have. That's the issue that not just I have, but many people that are reaching out to me have. It may seem great to have just one on Branch Street, one in Austin Circle, one in Westminster, or one in whatever, but if all of those homes are owned by the big guy, and I'm just giving it a name, if big guy owns all of those houses, that's an issue. That's what people are concerned with.
If I may,
Please.
But just so, because we can see you, but the people that aren't in attendance only see us. So
Oh.
just your name and property address again. If you-
sorry, sorry, Mayor.
It's okay.
So, John Watson, 102 West Buckingham. So just to piggyback off of that, I think the solution is, for the future and for current, is that you do limit it to one dwelling. Forget about how long you live at the residency or don't, but a homeowner in the town of Berlin can have one Airbnb rental property, period. Doesn't matter how long they live there, but they can only have one. So to address your concern, if this homeowner has 5 properties around, they can only do one of those 5.
They can only do one as a short-term rental.
Short-term rental, correct.
So
Correct.
the way to get around that, if you're smart enough, which many people are smart enough, is I own one, my wife owns one, my son owns one,
Yep.
my daughter owns one, my grandson, my niece, she's married my nephew, and they all own them. We're all different folks, but we're all one family.
That's true.
That's the issue.
That's true anywhere though.
Of course, and that's what I don't wanna see, or not just me, that's what people don't want to see as an issue here in Berlin.
Well, the other sorry, John Watson, 102 West Buckingham again.
It'll be second nature before you know
Yeah.
it.
To go back to a couple other things that can help alleviate some of those things, and I'm not saying that some families don't have, a couple $1,000s to throw around, because they probably do, but the fees going up and more regulation as far as what's going on at the property, to have some kind of a checks and balances could also help maybe alleviate some of that. I'm not sure $200 honestly is enough.
Me either.
I think it should be more like $500. I mean, you've got to, as Ms. Sargent said, these average reviews in Berlin are 4.8, and if you go on an Airbnb website, all these homes are really nice. They're charming, they're quaint. It's like everything that people talk about the town, they talk about the house. So people who are doing this are invested to have the community feel like they're home. And they can afford a little bit of extra money to kind of alleviate some of, I hate to use the term riffraff, or people that are just trying to make a buck. So, I think there's some creative ways that I think you can also get around some of this. My grandmother owns one, my dad owns one, my cousin owns one.
It's a business, it's a business at that point.
Well,
And, I hear what you're saying and I understand it, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's a business. Just like you said, that they can afford a little bit more, of course you can. If I'm charging you X amount of dollars to rent my house and you're only gonna be there for 4 days, and I've got 12 houses, name your price and I'm writing you a check for that license. It's not a big deal
Yeah.
because I'm making that money.
You're
It's a
correct. I agree with
business.
you. I
I'm
agree
running a
with you.
business. It's not even a second home at that point. It's a business.
Yes, that is correct.
Go ahead, just name and property.
Gabrielle Sargent, 23 Westminster. So, one idea could be just to make a decision around the volume of short-term rentals that the community is comfortable with. I think, again, I cannot commend enough the people that are doing it today. They are creating a great experience. Perhaps there is a threshold. You guys are happy with how it is today, but it's all about what about tomorrow. So you look to see who is doing a good job, what's the volume, and then the community just decides what's that threshold. And then again, I know that may not allow future people to come in, but people who have violated or haven't respected the rules or are not doing what they need to do, they lose their license, which opens that up for future people.
Now, Dave Engelhardt, the current number of people or short-term rentals, do we have an idea of how many there are in the town of Berlin?
If you search the websites that, Airbnb, VRBO, and you search Berlin, Maryland, there's a lot of them that come up. So people say there's quite a few that are doing it. The last time I looked at it, and I looked at photos for most of a day or half a day, I could confirm it was 12 to 14 in town. The rest of them are Berlin proper, maybe, like Ocean Pines, and that's the majority of the listings you'll see. There's some is even far away outside, that's on the boardwalk, but it's listed under Berlin, Maryland when you search on the national websites. So, around a dozen that I'm aware of.
And
I certainly don't go looking for it. No, I'm not here on a Friday night at 10 o'clock to see who checked in.
But less than 1,000 and probably much less than 100.
Honestly, 6
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about a handful. Now, is there a
Much
way,
less.
in January.
is it possible to limit, and this is probably to David Gaskell, Is it possible to limit the number of licenses that we would allow to be sold?
Yeah, they're getting on shaky ground, Dave.
I'm asking.
I mean, people have property rights.
You want to encourage them there, because if you don't, which, what I see with that, you're gonna have, I don't hate to use the term, but the illegal, they're just gonna do it.
And I'm not saying that that's the route, hold
Yes.
on one second. I'm not saying that that's the route we need to go, but if the discussion is around licenses, I wanted to know where the legality stood about limiting the numbers of licenses.
I don't think you could do that.
Okay, well, that's good information for us to have.
I'd like to get clarification on one thing, Dave. In the proposed ordinance, aside from what everybody else has suggested tonight, under R1 and R2, the restriction is it has to be owner occupied, correct? Under R3 and R4, anybody could buy as many units as they wanted.
Well, that's assuming they're they're multi-unit buildings. We do have single-family homes in the R3 and the R4, so that's something I even made a note we need to change.
But it's unrestricted. I could buy 10 homes to units to rent, whatever, correct?
If you had an apartment building with 12 units in it,
You can have them all.
right, you could make them all short-term rental, unless you choose to tell me you want it different, if you want that, or,
And that's what Dean was talking about.
You know, I do believe that going this road will cause the town to incur some expense related to monitoring, related to police calls, or possibly related to the various inspections. I think those costs need to be a consideration when we decide on whatever this licensing fee is going to be. And I do believe it should be self-supported.
All right, so I'd just like to summarize the stuff that I've heard so far. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. We know each other, but just name and not property address, but who you do.
Well, I've got a property.
Okay.
Colin Zimmerman, Coastal Association of Realtors. We own the property on Franklin, 314 Franklin. We've all spoken, we've all talked about this at length. I would encourage you to start small. Solve the problems you have. If your problems are noise, if your problems are health and safety, solve those problems. Create a license around health and safety inspections. Make sure that the houses are livable and correct. People aren't packing them into rooms. People are respecting the neighborhoods the way. Make sure there's someone local who can respond to calls if you have problems. That's going to solve 99% of all your problems. Start small, then build. If you feel like in a year it's not right, come back to the council, we can talk about it some more. There are ways to go. Don't start by limiting private property rights to people who live in your town. She has a property in your town, but she can't live here full time. You're going to limit her private property right to rent her home. If somebody owns a home and their mother dies and leaves their home, they won't be able to rent it. You're limiting private property rights, and you shouldn't start there. You should start small. So that's all I'd say.
Thank you for sharing. So I'd like to summarize the things that I've heard so far from the council, and that's we want to see violations and some language in a policy or in an ordinance that would address what occurs if there is a violation against a property. 30-minute contact person, a license posted with the business license inside, and a sticker or some fixed license that's capable of being seen from the exterior of the home. The occupancy that jives within the town code. Let's see. The licensing fee, which we'll take a look at to make sure that we're as close to what we can anticipate as possible to ensure that this does not produce a burden on the other residents in Berlin, and that the licensing fee is self-sufficient. Inspections and monitoring. And I believe that the body may be mixed a little bit on the resident or non-resident side. So I've heard from some of you this evening, but if anybody else would like to add anything,
Mayor,
yes.
I have two things that I just want, they're kind of generic. One is the property should be in a good standing with the town and real estate taxes, meaning utilities and everything else. If there is a delinquency, then it should be a process in place, whether a license suspended or eventually revoked.
Like we have with the permits.
Yes.
We have an ordinance for permits. They can't be issued permits if they're not in good standing with the town. We have people apply for a permit. Carolyn and I have to check with Natalie's department. Are they current on their utility bills? Are they current on their taxes? And they always, they're great. They get back to us right away. Yeah, go ahead and issue the permit. They're current. Or they tell us and we inform the applicant for any permit, you need to catch up on your electric bill before I can issue you the permit. And that's, we've had good success with that. So that's something we put in about a new ordinance 5-6 years ago. We put that in. Right.
Thank you.
So second suggestion, if in the situation there is a violation or delinquency and the license is suspended, I would like to ask for, I guess, for the help of departments to have a good process, like having teeth in place to have balance paid, additional fee paid to renew the license if there's a prior violation in the past.
I don't know if I fully understand what you're saying. So are you saying a violation?
If you violate one of the points in your license, not completely taken away or suspended, so the steps should be in place. You have to cover all the balances outstanding or come up with additional penalty fee to renew your license or
If it is actually revoked.
take the suspension away from the license.
So are we talking about like water, sewer, electric, or are we talking about a violation like a noise violation?
I would say all of it about it.
All right, so the thing is that if I were to get a license today and then not pay my utility bills, or they would be in the rears for some reason, they would have to square up before the next licensing fee, or the next licensing renewal.
I would not put such a long term because that's a whole year.
Or if your license is suspended or revoked, there should be some type of fee associated with reinstituting that license. And going along with that fee is making sure that you are still current with your town obligations.
Yes.
And that would be a reapplication, and then we'll go through all the steps with the fee.
But if you've suspended a license, what goes to my mind, if it's a first-time offense, if you will.
Revoke is I think the.
Right, if you
where we want to
revoke the license and then you're talking about instituting some type of fee, to enable you to get a renewal, I think there needs to be some pretty good bite to that.
Yeah.
You don't slap them on the wrist, because what I'm hearing from folks out here, I think it needs to be a pretty good bite.
Yeah, but
So,
if the application fee is $50, you don't wanna create a situation in which $50 is worth.
Right.
You want it to have enough teeth to avoid that.
Yeah.
Like an FR-19. Darn right, you know that is, don't you? Like if you go to the NBA, if you lapse in your insurance on your car, and you wanna go back or whatever it is, and you go back and you wanna get reinstated, then they charge you for that lapse, that time, all of that time where you had no coverage. And so you were really in a position where you're like, well, darn, I don't ever wanna be in a place like that ever again. Figure out how to make that work.
Is there anything I've missed? Is there anything I've missed in the summary?
I have one more thing under the other consideration. I'm just gonna ask if we could just change that to a generic language, saying the short-term rentals will be subject to a room tax set by the county without the percentages and allocation, because I believe last year the percent was increased by the county, so just to avoid the changes going to the future.
So you would use the county's room tax as the benchmark?
Yeah, but I would just take the actual percent amounts, because that would change.
And that is because they handle the collection of those room taxes?
They set the tax, yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to add to your summary. I just wanted to ask, not to put her on the spot, Ivy, as far as the community development side, looking at all angles of this, what is your professional
My take
opinion?
on all
Your-
this?
yeah.
I agree with what everyone said in the audience, actually. I think that we are looking for a problem that has, we don't have a problem with Airbnbs right now. I think that, I agree with what the mayor's saying and what you all are saying, but I frequent Airbnbs all the time, and I've looked at Airbnbs within town limits, and there are only about 10 to 12. I don't know of any Airbnbs currently that ever cause problems. I mean, I know permanent residents here that have more problems than any kind of Airbnb. I've looked at them, I've actually toured them, they're beautiful. And I think that it allows people to want to come to the town, it allows for additional income. I think, trying to word it, Dave and I have had this conversation before where we are.
It's a solution.
We're a solution looking for a
Looking
problem.
for a problem, yeah.
And I believe in case-by-case instances. A lot of the time, I don't want to have, I do agree with the increase in rate for a rental license, but that's my take on it. I think that, the fact that Berlin has beautiful Airbnbs is a benefit for this town.
Thank you.
If I may, and I understand what Ivy's saying, but part of the premise of charging a business license is so that we as the municipality know what is going on in our town.
Yeah.
So I do understand what you're saying about it, it's a solution in terms of a problem, but I also feel like it's something we need to know is happening.
Oh, yes, 100%, that we should have an Airbnb license, just like I said, I agree with that. But all the other things that we've been talking about and.
But if you don't establish some regulation that defines what an Airbnb is, who do you charge that license to? You have to be able to define what the activity is that incurs that license fee.
Correct, and I believe that the county already has done that.
But it doesn't cover Berlin.
But if we adopt what the county has, then.
Well, that may be the.
You
Right,
can't just adopt what the county has. If you look at the county,
Yeah.
it travels all over with all of their districts. They're different. Part of it, when they enacted that, was so they could clean up a lot of the, they had definitions and different regulations for guest house, for bed and breakfast, for motels, for hotels. And they needed to get that all cleaned up. I remember talking to Ed Tudor when they were doing that, and he's since retired, but that was one of their focuses with that, was that's why it took them a long time to get an ordinance in front of the commissioners, and then get it agreed on. So you can't just follow the county's ordinance and say, okay, wherever it says Worcester County, we'll type in Berlin. It doesn't apply to us. Two different animals. So, because we looked at that in the beginning, because of course, if you copy someone else's boilerplate, that makes it easier. What we have is limited staff anyway. So, but we couldn't do that. So.
Well, in some areas in Worcester County, there are houses owned by a single resident owning more than one house on the same block that are Airbnbs. So I wouldn't want to adopt that in the least bit. And that is the case in the county, in certain spots. I don't want
You know, when we're sitting here talking about, there's not a problem now in the town of Berlin. And yet, my mom used to say, when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's bad.
Real bad.
And we may be, at this point, looking for a solution to a problem we don't have. But somewhere down the road, there's gonna be a property owner come to us and complain about what's going on next door to him or her on a regular basis. In that case, we want to have what we need to handle that situation and to provide that resident with the peace and quiet he is due from living here in the town of Berlin.
Agree 100%, and I know that we have a noise ordinance, and we have several ordinances that apply to residents. I think that those would also apply to whoever is renting that property at that particular time.
And to this point, and you know, Chief Downing and I have talked about this. As a matter of fact, I talked to Lieutenant Fisher about it today, knowing we would be discussing this tonight. I said, can you recall any complaints or violations to the existing town ordinances that were the result of Airbnb? And there really haven't been.
Just one.
Just one. And again, as other people have mentioned, that could happen, or that could have happened with any resident of town. They went a little crazy and caused some damage. We don't have any consistent noise violations that I know of, and parking violations, or those are the two major ones that you think of, or trash, or anything like that. I haven't been notified of any, either by the public or by the police department. Usually when they get something that, you know, they think I might be able to help them enforce or concerned with myself, they tell me. They tell me all the time. So, but we haven't had any associated with short-term rentals. And we, like we've said, we know there are some in town, but it's going on.
But I can tell you, Dave, the property that the chief had the one call on, I received multiple calls on. Now, the police weren't called on those additional calls, because it was resolved.
But then we need to know.
I understand that.
You get the call, then
Right.
forward it to me.
I understand.
I need to know if, at any point, it doesn't
Right.
matter if it's short-term rentals or if it's, you know, there's no point in you taking the complaint and it doesn't go any further.
Yeah.
No action will happen if it doesn't go
Well, the
any
issue was
further.
resolved quickly, but it happened, I'm just saying.
I just got an email, a text message that says the biggest issue is that we will lose our neighborhoods. And I think that's my biggest concern also. Living here in the town of Berlin, I expect some things, and you know, I expect my neighborhood to be intact. When I moved here, or when I purchased my property, I do not want to see the nature and culture of our neighborhoods impacted negatively or changed tremendously by these short-term rentals. And I think that is a concern of the residents here in the town of Berlin.
Well, thank you for the discussion this evening. If anybody has any other points, we'll take them now. If not, go ahead, our electric utility director, Tim Lawrence.
I would just like to speak about short-term rentals, Airbnbs concerning utilities. I was just sitting here thinking, if you take a house and it has 4 or 5 bedrooms and you're renting those rooms out, let's say to 2 or 3 adults or 2 adults and a child, I see the utilities being increased as far as electric usage, water usage. Take a house, for example, a normal residential home is rated for 200 amp service. If you have that many people in a home and you're, you know, using all the different electric and all that stuff, and it raises the amount of demand on that service, it may not be able to handle it anymore. And then also on water consumption, that's also going to go up if you have that many people in a home that you're renting out every room. It's almost like it's becoming an apartment building. So Natalie can speak to this too. When you reach 3,500 kWh twice in 1 year, you become a demand customer at that point. So say where you see a house that gets up to 3,500 twice in 1 year, we have to look at changing the rate structure on that as far as billing. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but it's something we definitely need to keep an eye on, because it's gonna increase the utilities.
Yeah, and the water and sewer, that's achieved by metering anyway. So, you know, if they exceed the 250 gallons per day average on a metering, they could, if it was that popular an Airbnb, that every day of the year it was rented, you're gonna exceed that 250 gallons a day, but then we would go to them and say, you need to buy another EDU. And I think that would alleviate the problem with EDUs being close to $17,000 a piece.
But I mean, if you're flipping the property literally, that's what you're doing. If you're flipping it every 7 days, then that's not you know what I'm saying? If you're flipping that property every 7 days to somebody who's coming here to rent during our peak season, that guy who's doing that, you tell him you gotta buy another EDU. There's a check. You know what I'm saying?
But the problem with that is, there is no problem.
Well, you say it's not a problem.
They pay for the usage.
You say it's not a problem because because at that point all it is you're exchanging money, whereas we're exchanging bodies every 7 days, every 7 days, every 7 days, every 7 days. You say that's not a problem. You may think that's how you feel, but that's not how everyone feels. You see what I'm saying? It's in some instances it's a business, and well that's what it is. It's a business. It's money. It's a transaction. To these people, to these neighborhoods, to these families that are living around this every 7 day flip. This is their home. This is their neighborhood. This is where their children are. And I get that people come here because they think it's beautiful and it's quaint. Yes, it is, but we are not test subjects. And I'm not saying that I want to live in Mayberry. That's not what I'm saying. I am not saying that I want to be behind the times. That is not what I'm saying. But when you have citizens who are texting at the moment, and I know that everybody's gotten one while we're sitting here, stating this is an infringement to what I've bought into. I came here, I bought to live here because this is what I wanted full time. I understand that you want a second home or whatever it is to be here, but until, and I mean no disrespect to you, Mrs. Sargent, but until you can live here, this is not your home. You're visiting. You're visiting. And other than visiting, what you're doing is you're allowing people to pay your mortgage for you. And I'm not saying that with any disrespect. What I'm saying to you is, the text that I know I received 5 of while sitting here. I know you received it. He has, because I can hear the dings. These people are saying that's not what we want from Berlin. I can't be there right now because I'm putting my children to bed. Or I'm making dinner and watching this meeting right now, but I don't want that. So I'm telling you what they're saying.
Mayor, one thing that I'm hearing, and if I may, I think back probably 9-10 years ago in Wycomico County, and nothing to do with short-term rentals, but what I'm hearing, again, I'm trying to narrow this down, but what I'm hearing is when any of us, when we buy a home, when we purchase a home, we purchase it for a reason. 1, you can afford it. 2, it's where you want it to be. Schools, yada, 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 and go on and on. And I know in Wycomico County, again, you know, a number of years ago, what I heard, and I trying to make the correlation here, what I heard back then, because I sat in on a bunch of meetings in Wycomico County where residents were going crazy because the county rezoned school boundaries and kids were going, and, you know, people bought that home in that community to have that identity, if you will, on that street. Right. So probably the biggest thing that I've heard from residents in Berlin regarding short-term rentals has been, I want to protect the integrity of Shell Street. I want to protect whatever, Buttercup Court. But when you make it, to your point, Councilmember Nichols, you know, every 7 days you're flipping neighbors, or residents, if you will, or guests, that definitely has a complexion.
Well, that's the reality of it. There's no sugarcoating it when that's what's really happening. Every 7 days you're flipping it. In the summertime, everybody wants to be at the beach. Everybody wants to be at the bay. You're flipping it, you're flipping it. Okay, say you're doing it once every 4 weeks. You're flipping it, you're flipping it. Go ahead.
John Watson, West Buckingham.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, but I guess to be the counterpoint to that,
what is wrong with that? In other words, we've identified in this room tonight, I think, that we don't have a current problem, and I do agree that we have to be very mindful of the future, which was one of my suggestions about having the multiple units. I know there's a lot of loopholes with that. Me and you just discussed that about, it doesn't matter how much, they'll write the check, we'll figure it out. But something that promotes the town, and if you're flipping it every 7 days, and I do look at my street as Mayberry. I've got a 90-year-old sweet lady that lives across the street. I've got neighbors that live across the street from me, the Martins that have a 5-year-old son just like mine. I don't want the whole community to be a bunch of Airbnbs. And I don't think it ever will, because 60, 70%, I don't know the number, are single-family homes of people that are invested here that will never leave here and will never flip their house to make it into a rental.
Are you sure? If the price is right, you never know what somebody.
Sure. Well, of course, anything's possible. But my bigger point is that for the sub-segment that is interested in doing that, if you put some rules and regulations in that can weed out the bad offenders, to which right now we've identified one in the history that we can remember in this room, I think that we could strike a balance of having regulations in place that kind of keep those people away from our town that we don't want, but also promote the town for reviews that are 4.8 out of 5 on an average review of the 12 Airbnbs that are currently in here. So I don't know what the issue is of flipping it every 7 days. Let them flip it. It's another family every week that comes to our town and says, man, I love it here. I think I might want to live here one day. No disrespect, and I don't think you meant it that way, but you said flipping it every 7 days is a problem. I don't see it that way, as long as the people that are coming here are respectful of our community.
How do you know that they will be? And I'm not saying that they won't be, and we could talk about this all night.
Yeah, I know.
But what I'm just, and I don't mean you any disrespect, but what I'm saying to you is the probability right here of this constant flip is what's gonna happen? I mean, we all know math, simple math. You keep flipping it enough, then the problems that we don't have will arise. If you don't put something in place right now, it's just like with setting boundaries. When you're getting a new puppy, when you're teaching a classroom, when you're learning anything, there have to be boundaries and things put in place up front for the what if. You have to plan. I mean, that was a part of adulting when I was learning to become an adult. It still is adulting now. But if you don't put these things in place, and something comes up, something major comes up, then what do we do? Backpedal? How do you backpedal from that?
Well, I think we're putting a bad assumption that most of the people that are coming here are not good people. Like people.
No, I wouldn't say that, because good people are what? What are good people? Where's the line? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not arguing with you, but what are good people?
Good people are the same people that spend $150 a night at the Atlantic Hotel. Instead of going to the Atlantic Hotel, they book Miss Sargent's room for the night. They're no different, they're no better or worse, they're just people, just like everybody else that comes to this town. So I think we're putting I think we don't like the idea sometimes of these people don't live here all the time, so therefore they're not allowed to take in the benefits and the services that we provide. We are a resort destination town.
That's Ocean City.
No, that's Berlin too, with all due respect. We have a community here that is 15 minutes away from Ocean City.
That's Ocean City.
And this is Berlin.
That's what we're trying, that's the reason that people move here. Many of them, I'm not gonna say all, many move here for the quaintness of this town because they don't want to be in the center of the resort destination.
But don't you think there's many people, if not more, come here to visit this town for those same reasons?
Visit is.
So you're saying that you don't like visitors now to our town?
That's not, please don't put words in
Well,
my mouth.
I don't know where you're going with your line of comments.
Where my
with all due
line
respect.
my line of comment is, what I'm saying to you is just what I stated. A lot of people in this town, and I'm not saying all of them, that have messaged tonight that are not in this room have said that they do not feel comfortable with the regulations of having the Airbnbs a little bit as open as what some people in the audience are discussing. That's what I'm saying to you.
And they're entitled to that opinion as well. All I would do is tell those people listening at home is that that person who's renting that home is no different than somebody who's booking that hotel right across the street. They are the same type of people. They have to have some money to afford it. Their homeowner has an invested stake in it because they don't want to have their home be destroyed. And if there is a wild party or something crazy that happens, just like my backdoor neighbor who's shooting BB guns everywhere and he lives here and I didn't want him there either, well, then you take care of business and that person never rents here again, and you ban that license, and they never Airbnb in this town again. But it is a free and open society where people have the right to be able to rent their home out if they so choose. And I'm totally for regulations and putting some control on it. But the way you presented it, 7 days flip, you're saying that that's a bad thing. And I don't think that the people even writing at home, the way that was said by you, would agree with that. Because there's people that go to that hotel that spend 7 nights, and are they saying they don't want them there spending their money at the Atlantic Hotel? Or shopping in our street, shopping down our main street?
Watson,
So that's a
hold
hotel.
on 1 second. I know that this issue can excite passion among a lot of different people.
I apologize, Mayor. It just-
I know, but let's just remember that we need to be respectful in our position.
I apologize to you, Mayor, and I apologize to you. I feel like that conversation was going down a road that it didn't need to go down, and I just wanted to state that for the
It
record.
wasn't going anywhere further than where it went. You're flipping it every 7 days. It's just, that's what it is. Just like a hotel room.
And that's
Which
not a
is
bad thing, is all my
Which
points.
is in a building with all of the rooms right there in one spot, rather than spread out throughout the town. That's what the concern is. That's what they're saying.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Anybody else on the topic of short-term rentals this evening? I know, like what we've all talked about, I think on the health and safety side, there's a pretty good consensus. Everybody wants something that's safe and reasonable and with some checks and balances. But I think that what I'm hearing this evening, even among this body, is that there is still a little bit of a differing opinion about whether that's going to be owner-occupied or non-owner occupied across our different residential districts. But there's a time and a place for us to be able to sort that out. I think we've got a pretty good idea of the main components that need to be in a short-term rental ordinance, and hopefully, I would say in January, if not February, that we can be looking at something that's crafted and ready for this body to entertain, as well as a public hearing on that as well. So, if anybody else watching this evening or in the audience or on the council has any other ideas that come to mind after this meeting, go ahead and send those along to us, and we'll make sure they get passed along to our planning and zoning director. Let's move on to agenda item number 5, which is the PJM quarterly update. Our electric utility director, Tim Lawrence, and the town administrator, Jeff Fleetwood, will run point on that.
Good evening again, Mayor. Can you turn this on? Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I took this quarterly report from PJM out to you guys back in October. And the more I gave it thought, because things, you look at things differently each day. And the more I looked at this report for FY '22, and when I did a comparison on the backside of the page for FY '21, what caught my eye the more I looked at it, when you take a look at what the cost per kWh sold was in FY '22 for the quarter ending September, we were selling electricity for 0.05479 cents. And then when I look back at, for the year prior, we actually went down. I mean, it's nominal. It's the difference is 0.00190 cents. So I mean, it's nominal. But what I found fascinating with this, over the course of the last 12 months, inflation is not stayed at 0.0019 cents. Inflation's been incredible. So I guess what my message to the council is, and Tim, you tell me if I'm wrong, but what my message is to the council, the mechanisms that we have in place, when I say mechanisms, I'm talking about AMP, I'm talking about Steve Miller, I'm talking about PJM, and everything that we've got in place. This is proof in the pudding that it's working. And to the citizens that are at home, the reality of something is, again, that the amount that you're paying for your electricity over the last 12 months didn't go up. So I find that quite fascinating. Now, quite frankly, could it all go to hell in a handbasket the next quarter? It could. But this is a very positive report. And again, I just wanted to make that comparison, if you will, to the public.
Thank you. Anything to add from our electric utility director?
I just hope we can keep up the good work.
We like the numbers going that direction. All right, so up next is motion 2021-28, I'll be running point on this, and that is the creation of an arts and entertainment committee. We have had an arts and entertainment committee in the past. It's been an informal structure as it relates to our other town committees. With that being said, the town has taken over the ability to handle all arts and entertainment committee operations that was turned over by the previous committee to the town. And I'm asking this evening that we create a formal A&E committee so we can begin accepting applications for that. In the packet, you'll see the goals and the objectives of the committee. I can state those for the record. The goals and objective: Maryland's arts and entertainment districts help develop and promote community involvement, tourism, and revitalization. The A&E committee will help promote the town of Berlin by attracting audiences, artists, art organizations, and other creative enterprises to our community. Members should devote attention to creating and supporting a diverse artistic and cultural atmosphere that preserve a sense of place, providing unique local experiences, attracting tourism, and spurring economic revitalization and neighborhood pride. This committee shall work to address and implement strategies supported by the A&E District program, which are create accessible and unique art destinations throughout town, leverage our region's identity, natural resources, and heritage, facilitate opportunities for dynamic art experiences, and actively engage community members and attract visitors, enable artists of all disciplines to live, work, and prosper, create an economically prosperous future, and invest in the power of place. There's a link for more information from the Maryland State website. And then the structure of the committee would have a staff liaison being our Economic and Community Development Director, Ivy Wells. 5 voting members who are residents of the town of Berlin serving a 2-year term. The committee is an advisory committee that acts at the direction of the mayor and council. Motions should be structured as a recommendation for or against a particular issue, and each recommendation should be sent to the mayor and council for the review and action. The committee shall provide an annual report to the mayor and council. So this is something that we are seeking action on this evening by the council, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. It's really a clarification question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what invest, I think I know what it is, but invest in the power of place. Is that just, what is that? Is that showing our place? What is that?
So it's about creating a sense of space and place and like community pride and recognition through like heritage or culture or things of that nature. So it's about making our town more inviting, and if there's a way to provide an art installation around those features to do so. These are things, truth be told, that are within the scope of the state's program that have been mirrored for our own. So I hope that helps address your question.
Yeah, it does, and I just, down here. It does, and I was just asking for my own clarification on that, and if there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve formation of the Arts and Entertainment Committee.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Orris to approve motion 2021-28, the creation of an Arts and Entertainment Committee.
Second.
And I have a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And let the record reflect that motion 2021-28, the creation of an Arts and Entertainment Committee, passes unanimously. Thank you. My shameless plug, we do have boards and commissions with open seats. This one will be added by D3, so please apply. We have had some overachieving members of our community as well that have already applied for this style committee, so thank you for your application. Up next is a discussion, agenda item number 7, discussion adding parcel 191 to the Heron Park RFP. I'm listed as running point, but the town administrator and I will do this in conjunction with one another. We've had our pre-brief meeting here in this chamber, as well as a site visit. During that pre-brief meeting and the site visit, the question came up in reference to parcel 191, which is available in the map within the packet. If you're coming into the park and you're looking to the right-hand side, the area where we had the recycling, single stream recycling, or the Rains Reef, or the Rains Sand and Gravel property, as many know it, is parcel 191. And the question that was asked of us is this going to be included in the RFP? We said no, it is not currently included in the RFP, but we will take that question to the council. So it is before you this evening.
And before you give this any thought, the mayor's spot on with what he described. That parcel 191 sits directly behind Cropper's Towing. There is a structure on that property, and that structure houses a significant amount of water resources, valves, fire hydrants, etc. So I just need you to think that if you were to consider throwing this into the proposal for the Heron Park revitalization, is what I'll call it, we need to think long and hard about a facility, storage structure for all of that stuff as well.
That's a great point.
Jeff, real quick.
Sure.
You also, that's a place where stone, sand, debris, that we don't have in other places throughout the town on that property too.
And that's a good point, but the other side is that, I mean, as we're weighing the operational challenges, which we definitely need to look at, we also have to weigh those operational things that we do now with the existing site. And if RFP comes through that's favorable, I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just saying if something's favorable, maybe at the storage of our aggregate or certain things may not look the best there. So we do have to take that into consideration as well.
I think we should wait till we see what kind of proposals we get with the RFP, and then make the decision on this parcel.
So the idea of waiting for the inclusion of 191 is solid, but I would also say that along that vein, we don't know what the ideas might look like as it includes those parcels. So if we allow any particular proposer to also envision 191, it would be included in the same way that 410 and 57 are. They are not, you must include 191. We can approve those individually, but it's also allowing whoever's interested to look at the property a little more holistically.
But looking at the assessed value of this property, it's not worth that much. We have to go out and build another storage area, find the land to do it, and there's a lot of push-ups involved in that.
And I hear what you're saying also, but the other side is that if we go back to like our capital plan discussions, we've already been looking at the idea of different buildings, understanding the fact that if something doesn't look at, and there may be another building on that site, right? We might say that 191 is an asset to the town, we want to keep that, especially if this parcel's further developed, but it might not look in the same way, right? So we might end up putting a new building there per se, the one that was proposed in the capital plan need for public works or the operations of the town. So I think that in some ways, if we end up with something that looks really, really pretty on these parcels, we're gonna have to strongly consider the things that the town owns that don't maybe add that same value to the property.
But like you said, we have no idea what these RFPs are gonna bring. We could be rejecting them all, or we could see something so fantastic. At that point, we could go to that person and say, hey, how about if we make this additional lot available?
That's true. There is that option as well as to be able to submit another RFP that just includes parcel 191.
Rather than commit now, I just think it's a little premature. That's just my opinion.
Is there any other direction by the council?
I have no problem with only including it if you want. I'm not in favor of, at this point, 410 being disposed of either, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, those things are.
The right project comes along, I have no problem if they want to include somebody with it.
I think I'm also for, if anyone has any ideas in conjunction with the other parcels, the current RFP that's out there, parcel 91 should be included as a potential option.
Councilmember Nichols or Burrell?
You could include it as an option. It could always be withdrawn from the proposal, just like any of these lots.
Councilmember Nichols?
That was my thought, because a lot of, I mean, we're not locking ourselves into getting rid of it today or keeping it today. But at the same time, before the decide to do anything, if we were to do that, you have to make sure that we had adequate space before we got rid of it to displace all the things that are there. Like figure out a new home before anything happens for the things that are in that building currently.
So, David Gaskell, if we wanted to add parcel 191 to that RFP and structure it in the same way that parcel 57 and 410 are, that would not make the town commit or have to commit to whatever a proposer were to submit, would that require formal action or?
I don't believe so.
So a consensus like this can carry us forward. Okay, so then hearing that, we will include parcel 191 as an amendment, and we'll send that out to everybody that's expressed interest. And we will also publish the amendment to the RFP.
How big is the building that's on this 191? I don't see that, or do I? And I don't.
It doesn't give you the size, but,
Pretty much, right.
it's probably 1.5 times the size of this.
Probably about 30 by 30.
Yeah.
On the SDAT, it does say above grade living area is 3,000 square feet.
Right.
So I would say give or take around that. All right, so let's move on to agenda item number 8, which is another discussion item of the FY23 budget schedule. Myself and the finance director will run point on this. In your packet, you have a draft proposal by the finance director for FY23. You have the discussion item that I think Councilmember Orris brought up a couple meetings ago regarding an FY23 budget schedule. And then you also have, as a point of reference, our FY22 internal budget schedule. I would say the major, and Natalie, please let me know if I'm incorrect with this, the major changes with the 22 internal and the 23 internal schedules is that what we've tried to do is add another work session in February that will be geared towards the capital projects. And is there anything else?
We'll also change the work sessions for general fund and utility funds on the non-mayor and council meetings. So April the 4th, it's almost all the way down to the page. And April 18th, those are Mondays, but they're not pre-council, they're just regular Mondays.
That way we're not up against the time frame for a regular session.
The only thing I would like to add, as you just mentioned, February 14th is the general fund fiscal 23 capital projects work sessions. I wasn't sure if we would like to include, let's say, April 11 before the utility funds, the same session to discuss the capital projects. I didn't add it here because we kind of didn't discuss it in the past. So before April 18th, I would suggest to add April 11 at 6 p.m. fiscal 23 enterprise funds capital project work session.
I think that's a smart idea.
As a separate session.
Now, I thought you were gonna say you were gonna offer to provide Valentine's Day dinner that day.
Sure.
I was waiting for you to come up with that for that February 14th date.
Now,
Well, we don't
Council.
have April 14th. We have
No, I said
April
February.
4,
No, I was
11,
looking at
18th.
February 14th.
But you're more than welcome to come over at April 14th.
the other thing is that Councilmember Orris, we tried to take a look at your proposed internal budget schedule, and outside of the adoption of the tax rate, I think that's the only point that's not considered in the internal budget schedule for 23 and the previous schedule for 22. And that is ordinance bound. So we did have a discussion about that internally. And Natalie, would you like to provide a little bit of insight as to why we have the motion for, or the adopted ordinance for the adoption of the tax rate early on?
Sure, just in general, that internal budget schedule is a draft and it's just presented for you to review it and make any suggestions or comments. It's very similar to what we had in fiscal 22 and it's just updated for current days going forward. In the past, we had several budget processes where we would discuss the budget and discuss the capital items for a next fiscal year. Then we would go to a discussion of a tax rate, and then we would go to adoption of a tax rate, and the rate will per se not changed or increased. Then the budget will kind of reverse itself. We go in back to the budget discussion and we start eliminating the capital projects from general fund, because the real estate tax rate is directly driving the revenue that can collected from the taxes, and it's a pretty much 70% of all the projects and all the general fund operations. So to help the budget discussion and the work sessions, in the past, it was a motion to structure the rate tax discussion and adoption. So we have a solid idea going forward to next fiscal year, capital projects, having an understanding what kind of stream of revenues we will receive so we can plan the capital projects. That's why we kind of go along with the tax rate and the work sessions with the general fund capital projects, and adoption of the rate happens first before we go to actual general fund work session.
Okay. Well, first, I do want to make a clarification from my initial presentation of this from the last council meeting. I did state that that it was flawed, and what I meant by that was it was a flawed process. I didn't mean the numbers were flawed or the staff doing their work was flawed. So I do want to clarify and apologize for any confusion or concern that had brought. In the schedule presented, it is not quite different from what I've presented, other than the obvious, which is the tax rate and budget adoption at the same time as the mayor stated. There are a few, my draft's scheduled to work together as a team. That's why we're having a discussion, which I appreciate Natalie answering some emails and phone calls. It's really not that separate, aside from the major issue of the timing of the budget and the tax rate. I believe that you're referring to Resolution 2019-05.
Yes.
Which is, okay. And Dave, you can correct me here, but I believe a resolution is not an ordinance, but yet it is only an opinion of a legislative body. Is that correct?
It's not an ordinance.
So really this is just, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily wrong the way it's going. It just, I think that we can work together and perhaps make it a little clearer for our residents. And envisioning the total process of, after all of the work sessions and all the public input, this is what we have, this is what we would like to do, including the capital. This is what we have, this is what we have to do to make it work. Now I understand that there was a concern that we could get to with I don't want to say my plan, but with what I offered, that we would get to the end and there wouldn't be an agreement. So finance felt that they have to go back and redo all the calculations again. And I'll let you take the lead on this, but I do believe that if we get to a certain section here, either way, preferably with what I suggested, you can provide us tax rates, correct? Or a range?
Sure, as a projection.
As a projection. It's not, we're not committing. I just want to make sure I'm very clear that I'm not suggesting anything at this point, but as a way to help this process, if the council decides to, I would hope that the council will consider it, and review the process itself, that is an option available to us. And that's my scoop.
So let me make sure I'm understanding it correctly. You're saying that you would like to see the adoption of the tax rate and the adoption of the budget at the same time. Is that correct?
That is correct. In the end, yes.
How does the rest of this body feel? So to clarify, there is is it a resolution or ordinance?
It's resolution 2019-05.
And that states that adoption occurs when exactly? I do not have the resolution in front of me.
The public hearing for the tax rate shall be set and the decision by the mayor and council made on the tax rate no later than the second meeting in March.
So you're looking at March 28th.
Right.
But Jack is, Councilmember Orris is suggesting that fall back down to the May?
Well, that would be in May, yes. So this resolution would have to be, if the council decides to go another way on the process, this resolution would have to be reviewed, revised, or repealed.
So I just have a little question here. So the proposal that are on right now is to adopt the tax rate in the same time with the budget adoption. The scenario of what if the tax rate is not adopted as agreeable among every council at the rate that is needed, which we've seen it in the past. The budget adoption is on the same date. That's exactly what I was describing. That kind of cancels the adoption of a budget. We have to push it back. At the same time, May is a very late date for the tax. There is a process, I have to submit paperwork June 1st. That's on the schedule as well. So if the rate is not adopted or something is delayed, that pushes us to a very, very late term. At the same time, you would have to re-advertise the tax rate and re-advertise the budget per ordinance of the town.
Right, and those are valid concerns, but that's why I had mentioned that the council could be provided a range of rates to coincide with.
So those projections could be done and discussed at the same time of the introduction of the rate, which is March 14th. You're allowed to discuss the rates on the introduction. You're allowed to have a conversation and present the projections of what revenue streams you will be generating from different rates.
Right, and through our budget discussions for this fiscal year, I know that I had asked, I think twice, if we decide on a rate in the early part of the process, and then we decided needed changing, I was advised that it can be changed later on. So what would be the situation in the scenario in that, if that were to happen?
Well, you can change the rate ultimately. You would just have to go through the process. It's not advisable to do that as a no? They said no.
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay. That's why I'm bringing the capital project work session very early on, plus giving you a finance director present general fund revenue projections February 25th. And also you're gonna have an introduction of the tax rate March 14th where you can discuss according to those work sessions in the past. I'm just explaining.
No,
I'm not pushing my
This is a
opinion.
discussion to work together. I mean, we're all a team here. So, but I think I'm not sure the proper process here, but I would just present it to my colleagues.
Tell me your reason. Tell me your reasons for.
Well, the reasoning is for this is that actually I've been thinking about it for a couple of years, even before I decided to get involved on this side of the table. It always seemed to me that it was a little odd that we would set our tax rates prior to even having any one public input session or work session. And it always felt like, to me personally, and now I know a little bit more, but it always felt that we would kind of set something and then back into it. I've been trying to think of a good analogy, but the only I can think of is it's like not getting enough gravel to fill your driveway that you're trying to pave or whatnot. So that is my reasoning. My other reasoning being, you know, on this side is that it's a little complex for some residents to understand. And I think that if the residents have the opportunity to see everything, you know, see what we can see, not that they don't necessarily, but they see it after the rate's already set. So if we have an opportunity to open it up to them so they can see what we have, what we potentially can have, what we would like to do, what things cost, this is where we are. It's similar to what the county commissioners do. This is X, we have Y, here we are, so we would maybe make a decision. But to set, in my opinion, to set the tax rate right off the bat, I understand, I just think it kind of doesn't really give the public a whole lot
So
of
the
opportunity.
projections for the general fund, the projections, the actual drafts, they're posted on the website. When we say the public should see, there is a actual printout of what we discussed in the work sessions. So February 14th is the capital project work session. The projections for the capital projects of fiscal 23 would be posted on the website as well for review. And the discussion during the work session is a public meeting as well, and everybody is welcome to attend. If you would like to insert an actual tax rate work session, or combine those two together in the same time, prior to actual introduction, that's maybe what I hear from you.
Where would that fall?
It could go on a February 14th, where it's introduced, and it could be done before the 7 p.m. mayor and council meeting as a work session.
Hold on one second.
February 14th is just the date introduced, not the rate introduced.
But hold on, so February 14th, we have a work session already on the books for the capital project. I think that discussion will take about an hour.
Okay.
So I don't think that we should stack anything on that evening outside of the capital project.
Okay.
And I also, I mean, I think I do like that, but I think, is there any interest in revisiting the process by the mayor and council?
Your idea is not flawed. I mean, you make a good case for moving that down, and by looking at that, I mean, it makes, in a perfect world, it sounds good. But where the imperfection is that if we get to a point where we disagree on a capital project or a capital item, the finance director makes a good point. At that point, you then have to start to delay the budget process itself. So, and then it puts her against the deadline of June 1st. So my next question is there a way to adjust this and maybe push the budget adoption up a little bit further so we're not against that hard deadline of June 1st?
So to Natalie's point, can we squeeze another date in early on to have more public input?
Could we get rid of or adjust some of the introduction of the tax rate so that it jives with the introduction of the budget itself and push the whole process up a little bit further? That way, if we get to a point of disagreement, it gives us a chance to be able to work that out without putting her against a hard deadline.
I mean, to what Jack's saying, I see value in doing what he's suggesting, but to accommodate Natalie, if we could just adjust the early dates, I think we'd be fine.
And I think if we were to do that, we would be looking at, hold on, let's see.
Would it work if we change February 14th capital projects work session from 5 to 6? 6 to 7 is the tax rate just discussion as the work session, and then just announce that, because February 14th is just an announcement of the date. There is not really introduction or discussion. It's just setting the date for introduction. So if the work session for tax rate with the projections of the different streams of revenue follows the capital project work session, I think that might help.
What happens if we take this and totally stand this thing on its head and move our general fund budget work session and our utility fund budget work sessions up into March and speed this process up by a month?
What would happen if we would include the, tax rate projections on, no, this is just due to 25th, I'm sorry.
Could we move the work
I
sessions
think it's a
up into
little
March?
too earlier, just for work sessions, because the work that we involve with each department starting from January and going to the public work session in March, it's gonna be a little bit of, speedway process, plus going into April and May with the work sessions, we have a almost full prior fiscal year to look at.
Now, when we look at the budget, like if we chunk it out, right, like what we've talked about, the operations side, the salaries and general administrative costs, they stay the same, roughly. The real meat of this is a capital project or something like that. So is there a way to push the work that we're doing up a little bit so that we can adopt the tax rate and the budget at the same time, to Councilmember Orris's point, and then still allow you to have enough time that if we need to come back to the drawing board on the budget because we alter the tax rate, what would that look like?
I think we're repeating to what I said prior, you would have to redo your budgets based on what the tax rate is.
Yeah, the tax rate drives the budget.
For general fund.
And how can you wait and adopt both of those items on the same day?
I mean, it's, in an ideal world, it works out better because you're looking at your revenues, you're looking at your expenses, you're actioning those items together once you have a full picture. I mean, I have to say that in some respects, I agree with Councilmember Orris's point. I also see the operational challenges that it can create on the side of the finance director. What I'm asking is how do we marry those two together in a way that makes the budget process a little easier and also easier to do and easier to follow for everybody at home, as well as meeting our deadlines that we have.
So I thought that to accommodate that point, as we discussed, that's why we agreed on the extra work sessions just for the capital projects. That was my understanding from you.
Yes, but then to Councilmember Orris's point, for us to follow is one thing, and for us to be able to see how the whole budget plays into one another. But for people watching at home, I can see where that might not be the easiest thing to follow, unless we have a plan for presenting those things. So, I mean, I can see both sides of the issue, which is why it's a discussion item this evening.
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, thank you, Councilmember Mayor. Perhaps some public input would be helpful as well.
The one thing I would say is yes, public input is very helpful at certain junctures. This is an internal budget schedule that really doesn't give us, like if we take the path that is before us this evening with the FY23 budget, you can see that that's starting in January. I would like to hear a little direction from this body this evening if we possibly could, because we're getting ready to enter into the holiday, and then we do need to start ramping up on the operational side to be able to start producing these things that we have before us.
And this particular schedule is an internal, almost a staff budget schedule. We normally have a very bullet pointed date by meetings and workshops on the website. So this is more detailed, it's not gonna go, if we're thinking about confusing everybody.
And to the finance director's point, we can structure that presentation for the capital project work session in a way that we can help show where that's gonna fall in on the budget itself to make it easier to follow for people at home. We can accommodate both sides, is what I'm
Yeah, no,
saying.
I understand what you're saying there.
So I guess to help the process, the first thing, if everybody is in agreement to add an extra work session for tax rate discussion with projections as a separate item, or combine it in the same time frame with the capital projects work session to help to discuss, to have extra time to discuss the tax rates and the tiers and the increases and the revenue projections that they would generate.
What we could do is show, in years past, we've even had some of these where it's the revenue projections based off of each one, and you could show what capital projects could be achieved within each tranche of that revenue stream. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would give you at least some sense of what you're looking at.
Right, and I think, I mean, if I'm hearing, I mean, I'm sure that there's a way that we can, you know, address all of our concerns, as far as the process goes. I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
so am I hearing that, go ahead, Councilmember Nichols.
So I'm trying to understand where we are at this immediate moment. At this moment, we're looking to, the solution, the immediate solution is to add the 411, right? And that would be or 411 was already a done deal adding it. Or adding 411 as a date would be something that would be the additional.
Work session.
Work session for enterprise funds only. That has nothing to do with the tax rate.
Okay,
So
that
411
is
is just an extra session to discuss capital projects for utility funds.
Okay,
What I'm asking, or what I'm proposing, is to help the process with the tax rate adoption, to add extra session or add extra time to existing session,
right,
to discuss the projections of tax rate and possibilities of funding by those revenue streams some of the capital projects that needed for fiscal 23. And what I'm suggesting, February 14th, is a breakdown to a two-portion, ultimately to hear the department heads and their needs for capital for fiscal 23, and then a discussion of projections of a different rate of a tax rate and revenue generated by.
okay, I thought I
That would be my preference.
Now hold on one second though, but before thinking this through, so if we're gonna discuss some capital needs, right? And
Well, they're gonna be very, very, very emphasized for fiscal 23. They're not just gonna be just needs.
No,
They're
I-
gonna be fiscal 23 structured must-haves.
I'm agreeing with you, and what I'm saying is that, is it possible to produce that tax rate equivalent for those projects that same evening, or will we be putting ourselves in too much of a tight?
I would be presenting you with the projections.
Correct.
Starting at the current rate and going up to whatever you're gonna tell me to go up, as high as you want me to project. Just for discussion, to see what rates are there to support what we need for fiscal 23.
And that'll be on the 14th.
Right,
Gotcha.
For the general fund,
for the general.
That'd be on the 14th.
at 6 p.m. Or are you saying 5?
6 p.m. 5 would be capital projects, 6 o'clock would be the tax rates.
Could
Okay,
they-
so that's
could they
where
be
the issue
combined?
came from.
Right.
Could they
I'm
be,
sorry.
could they be combined in a discussion? I'm asking, or does that, do you
It
think
doesn't,
an hour?
it's a work session, you can combine and mix, it's not a mayor and council agenda items.
Right, but what I'm asking is, do you think that those two things can be combined concisely within an hour? Or do you think that it's gonna take 2 hours?
No, I don't think it could be filled.
I think
Okay.
it would be better if we go into hours.
So what we're saying is February, March, April, I'll see you all here.
Yeah, we're gonna be putting pots in. So the February 14th, the internal schedule that we're looking at it for FY '23 would have a 5 PM work session on the 14th.
Right, and I would add a line above the general fund, capital project, below, stating, real estate tax rate revenue projections for general fund.
And then we will also add the enterprise fund capital review in April.
April 11th at 5 PM, just to follow the.
See, but that's a regular meeting.
Just to clarify, February 14th at 5 PM will be
General fund fiscal 2023 capital project work
capital,
session,
okay.
just like it states on the draft. And then below, we would have real estate tax rate, different rate projections.
Okay. So the capital projects becomes 5 o'clock and the
Yes.
tax rate.
Follow right after.
And then at 7, we're gonna have our regular meeting.
Right.
Well, for the ease of it, why don't we just combine that at one thing at 5 o'clock with 2 agenda items?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay,
doing,
all right.
exactly.
Councilmember Burrell?
That makes for a long evening.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
And knowing myself,
For a long day.
with a long evening, I wonder if I will be able to give this the attention that it needs with such a long meeting. I would suggest that would it harm us to come here another evening during that week for the sole discussion of these items?
What I could even think is that if, not knowing what the agenda looks like on the 14th, we could even structure it by the charter, we only have to meet once a month, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we could always take the agenda and just do a work session that evening and move the other meeting to be a open session.
Okay.
So the other
So there, we meet twice in February.
right, the other part would be that everything else is on the 28th.
Yes.
So yeah, the work of the body, a public open meeting would be the second meeting in February. The first meeting in February would be the work session to accomplish the things that we've discussed this evening.
Depending upon the agenda items for the 14th.
Correct, and I think that even coming out of that, I don't think that we could have so many items on the second meeting in February that we're here until midnight. I think we can accommodate it. Well, I mean,
Well, if it looks like, if it looks that stacked, then can we consider the 16th as another one of those days? I don't know. Because I mean,
But we don't need to do that now.
but you're saying we don't, but you're thinking that on 28th, we won't be here until 85,000 o'clock.
my hope is that we're not here until 85,000 o'clock.
Okay.
But I'm teaching Charlie time, and I don't know where that's at on the clock, but but no, I think that knowing the scope of the work that we'll have for February, I think that could be achievable and not distress any of us. That's not the goal of this. All right, to summarize, we have the work session on the 14th. The public meeting will be the second meeting in February. The Town Administrator Fleetwood, does that present a challenge for any of the other stuff? We were having some discussions about some of the items. I don't think that that'll put us in a
I don't think it does.
unfavorable spot. Yeah, I think we'll be good. And then adding the work session in April. Councilmember Orris, are you okay with giving that a try for FY '23? And then if we're back to the drawing board and we find that doesn't work, we'll try something different for '24.
Yeah, no, that's great, I appreciate the discussion. I think.
Any other comments or input regarding the FY '23 budget schedule for the internal copy? All right, let's move on to number 9, Town Administrator's Report.
I sent everyone an email today. I actually I worked banker's hours today. I came in at somewhere between 2 and 3. When I pulled in the parking lot, I saw a gentleman hanging out Shirley White's window. And Jimmy Charles come around the corner, so he was en route. But the windows for town hall have arrived. Unbeknownst to us, the gentleman showed up today and started the work. So we've had a long conversation with the contractor. I will tell you that. But the window's here. If you want to take time tomorrow to take a look at one that's on the ground floor, the old police chief's window on the back of town hall that has been replaced, you can take a look. And it's not complete, it's installed, but it still hasn't trimmed the bill. So we sent out a schedule today on what they're going to do over the course of the next week to 10 days, and you can see where that's going. Tomorrow we meet, I say we, DBF, Jamie, Mary and I, and Natalie, to discuss water meter RFPs. So we're going to get those in place. One RFP for the actual material, and then one RFP for the actual labor to install those new water meters. Stephen Decatur Park, I'm not stealing anything from Jimmy. I've sent it out multiple times, but please take a ride, go to Stephen Decatur Park. The canopy has gone up significantly. They're not finished, but you can definitely see by looking at the trees what's been removed. And I think in the end, the goal is for someone to be able to stand out on 113 or stand on Kenwood Court, and you look across that park to see that it's been opened up. And that's the whole idea, to give it a whole new look. A lot of work's taking place, thanks to Tim, Jamie, Jimmy. It's something for you to take a look at. The 15th of, what's that, Wednesday of this week, we have the bid opening for our streets RFP. We also have the bid opening for the new well at well number 3. On the 16th, we have a vendor coming into town hall to clean the carpet downstairs in the main hallway out here. On the 21st at 1 p.m., we have our virtual Public Service Commission hearing. Again, it's being done virtually this year with the COVID. And that pretty much encompasses my report.
Thank you. The only other thing about the park, outside of aesthetics, being able to look across the park, is the safety side, so that if somebody is out walking or something like that, it does improve the safety of the park. But outside of that, great work to the Public Works Department as well. Any questions for our town administrator?
Yes.
Go ahead.
That tree canopy, I haven't seen it yet, but will that, I remember, on Veterans Day, Tony had mentioned that the flagpole in the park at Decatur kind of needed to be moved, weren't done.
The mayor had a discussion with me, and I've not had that discussion with Jimmy yet, but we will take a look at potentially moving that flagpole at Decatur Park. But what we need to do is to go out first of all to see if it's feasible to move it. Maybe, would you call it 85,000 a clock? There might be 85,000 tons of concrete around that pole.
Well, I didn't know if with canopying it, if that would have
That will.
opened up, or, you know what I'm saying, eased up some of the yucks around that flagpole.
That, and also, like the town administrator mentioned, we've had additional conversations and requests to possibly move that and align it with that 1812 memorial, which could dress it up a little bit more. So to the town administrator's point, as long as we're not looking at a piece of concrete the size of your table there, and it's something that we can possibly move, we may end up doing that. If not, you might see a possible line item in the budget for a new flagpole there, because it does have some use on it. But, thank you. Good question. All right, let's move on to departmental reports, and let's start with Tim Lawrence, Electric Utility Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a few things to report on. 113 and 115 Flower Street, that's the townhomes behind Uncle Willie's gas station. In the new apartment building, the electric department has totally completed their work there as far as helping them with the renovation of the electric feeding to the townhomes, and then also the new apartment building. We set a new transformer and energized that building. All the meters are set, so as far as the electric department, we are finished there. So now I get to bill them for all our work.
so.
And then, we also assisted Public Works with yard waste pickup. Like Jeff mentioned about Decatur Park, we were in there helping raise the canopy on the trees to give it a better look through there, so you can see through there very well. And then also we were doing some work on the tree trimming of the 69 Tie Point line. That's the main line that feeds into our substation from Delmarva Power. We had a little incident there today. One of the trees that we were cutting the top out of, it decided to fall the wrong direction, and it landed on the side of the truck and did a little damage to the vehicle. None of the employees were in harm's way. They were completely away from it when that occurred. And then also doing a little prep work for New Year's Eve celebration. And then also, I received a request today from AMP, American Municipal Power, to provide mutual aid to the state of Kentucky for all the damage that occurred down there. As of this morning, they had over 8,000 utility poles on the ground. So AMP is asked for volunteers for mutual aid. We would be included with multiple municipalities in the rotation, and they're looking anywhere from 2 to 3 months of restoration. So our crews would go down there and work for like a week and then come back for a little while and then possibly go back down again. If we do decide to do that with approval of the council and Jeff, we would probably be leaving maybe the first or second week in January. We've done this several times, Orlando, Florida, Franklin, Virginia, Dover, Delaware. And I look at it as, you know, there could be a point in the town of Berlin where we need their help. And I could pick up a phone and they would be there in a minute to help us if needed. So, that's it. That's my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I speak for all of us when I say that people of Kentucky are in our thoughts and prayers, especially this close to the holidays.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions for our electric utility director, Tim Lawrence?
Which truck was damaged?
It would be one of our large bucket trucks and our derrick truck and possibly the pole trailer. I actually had a conversation with Chop Tank Electric today. Normally when we go away on trips like this, Chop Tank backs the town of Berlin up. That if something was to occur here, they would help us out since some of our employees would be down there.
Hold on a
He's asking
second.
what truck
Damage.
damaged.
Councilmember
Oh,
Burrow.
which truck was damaged?
Yes.
One of our large bucket trucks.
The very large bucket truck.
We have 2 of them, 60-foot trucks.
Well, will the damage impede its operation?
No, it will not.
And is this an insurance claim?
I'm not sure how
We
we
have
can
to,
handle that.
we have to assess the damage because we do have a $10,000 deductible. Yeah.
And it's less than $10,000 damage.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, just Tim, when would you need to know if, to go assist those folks?
I've already notified them that if we were able to go, we would be able to go probably the first or second week in January. Right now it's just really bad timing with Christmas holidays and all that coming. Plus they haven't quite worked out how many utilities are gonna respond down there, how many are there right this minute. It's kind of like chaos in that area. So I mean, as long as you give me the approval, and we'll be ready to go whenever they call us.
Okay, thank you. Can you please keep us updated? I know you will.
I will, I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Up next is our planning and zoning director, Dave Engelhardt.
I don't have anything further tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I have a question for Dave.
Sure.
The apartments on Flower Street.
Mhm.
There seems to be what I refer to as a stormwater pond parallel to the sidewalk, little swell.
Okay.
It looks like it's designed to hold water, stormwater. And I'm wondering, will there be any type protection or barrier
I don't recall there being a stormwater pond. I believe it's supposed to be a rain garden when it's complete. So it'll be plantings and, you know, like a landscape island.
But it will hold water.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Will there be any type barrier?
If I may, what you're referring to, I've had multiple conversations with those folks. What you have now, you're spot on. It holds water. But what you've got that's even more of a concern beyond that is coming off a flower that is currently an entry apron. The old entry, because you could go in two different ways into those apartments. So that water collection point that you're talking about now sits directly in front of that apron. So the question that I stressed, and they assure me it will be taken care of, is that apron will disappear and it will now be a curb. So that's what we're going with.
But there would be no barrier between the street and the place that's gonna hold water,
Other than a curb.
other than a curb.
So how high is the curb gonna be?
What's the average height of a curb? 8 inches?
Yeah.
How deep will the water be?
That I don't know.
And how deep could the water possibly get?
I don't believe it's designed to collect water.
I don't either.
I don't recall, but I'd have to look. It's been quite a while. I'll have to look back at the plan, but I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for our planning and zoning director?
When will you let me know?
I hope tomorrow if I can pull the plans out and take a look at it.
I'll be waiting for your call.
Okay.
How long before they receive occupancy for this new spot?
I'm sorry?
How long before they're done and they receive a certificate of occupancy?
Some of the apartment units already have.
No, not the existing, but the new, before they're done, packed up and out of town, for the contractors.
Well, they have to call in for final inspection, so if Tim's just energized the building.
Right.
Now they're gonna go ahead and try and get final electric approval, final plumbing approval, fire marshal approval. So I don't know where they are progress-wise with finishes like drywall and carpet and cabinets on the new building. But assuming they're doing that, it would be 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, so the question Mr. Burrell had, I guess the water concern, you guys will find out an answer to relatively quickly. But if there's a concern, will it be taken care of before they receive occupancy?
They wouldn't get it if
I'm just, that's what I'm asking. They wouldn't, correct?
the site plan, the parking, the sidewalks, the general circulation, like Jeff's saying, the entrance, that all has to be in place too before you get a final certificate of occupancy.
Right, I mean, even if, like, I guess, even if all of those things were in place and this water hole were still, and I know you say it's not a water hole, but even if this water hole were still there, that water hole not being addressed, that could prohibit certificate of occupancy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was,
And that water hole should look like the water hole that's at Railroad Avenue
Mhm.
and Flower Street, so just understand what it should be.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but that has to be
Correct.
in place before they pack up and leave.
All right, any other questions for our planning and zoning director? All right, Chief of Police Arnold Downey?
We wanna go ahead and say that the Christmas parade was one of our finest in my 28 years. And we wanna thank Allison and Ivy for the wonderful coordination and planning of the event, and all of our law enforcement partners for assisting with the public safety and crowd control. In my staff report, I mentioned Lexipol, a vendor for actually helping us implement and upgrade our current general orders, and to take our practice and procedures and move them into that vein. And again, that's something that will be coming up in early January for you guys to go ahead and get a proposal or a presentation of what it actually is. Right now, with that type of service, Snow Hill has gone to it, Sheriff's Office has used it, and Ocean City, they're going to it. What it does is it goes ahead and helps us with our liability insurance. It would actually give us a discount, plus it would help us overall with addressing different issues that might come forth. One thing we definitely know, that if you don't have the rules and regulations in place, that is a liability. This service also assists us in training in-house on a regular basis to go ahead and assist with any type of possible litigation or something like that. That is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief of police? All right, up next, County Attorney David Gaskell.
I have none.
All right, let's go to our new department head, Director of Public Works, Jimmy Charles.
Jimmy Charles.
We still expect the radio voice.
We'll still continue to work at Decatur Park with the help of electric. Then we also have our second bulk pickup, which will be going this Wednesday, or the fall yard waste bulk pickup. That will complete that for this year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Up next is our Finance Director, Natalie Slay.
The only thing I have emailed everybody a draft of fiscal 21 audit reports finally. Please review, let me know if you have any questions, suggestions, observations. They will be presented January 24th at the Mayor Council meeting, the audit here in front of us. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Any questions for our Finance Director, Natalie Slay? I don't recall, did I ask if there were any questions for Jimmy Charles? Okay, all right. Up next is our Economic and Community Development Director, Ivy Wells.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to congratulate Jimmy on his promotion. Over the last 10 months, it's been a pleasure working with Jimmy, and I'm very happy to see that he's accepted a director position, so good for you, Jimmy. And then also, I'd like to echo what Chief said about the parade, and I'd like to commend his team and the rest of the law enforcement agencies that helped out that evening. Many people don't realize what it takes, the amount of people involved and the amount of planning involved in a parade, and we take so many things into consideration the night of the parade. Safety is in light of what happened last month, the unfortunate accident that happened at the other parade. We remembered all the things that we already had in place for, God forbid, something like that. That there's vehicles at every intersection. You cannot break through to that parade route. There's an officer that actually follows the parade right, but behind it doesn't allow anyone through. There's police officers out lining the street. So, thank you for mentioning that, Chief. But it's because of what everyone does for that event to make it such a success. If you haven't heard, the town did receive the $500,000 full amount that we applied for the strategic demolition grant from Department of Housing and Community Development to be used for the demolition of said buildings on Heron Park, and that would be, the rest of it is up to you all to decide how you want to proceed with that.
Can we celebrate? Yay.
That is strong for
Berlin Pizza is now open. That's the new drive-through pizza restaurant. It's actually more than just pizza in front of Tractor Supply, the old previous Taylor Bank building. So that is now open. This week,
Drive-through?
yeah, you could. Their menus online. They have a pizza is just a small part of their menu, but they've got dinners and salads and subs and appetizers, and you can order it and then drive through and pick it up. They're actually, people were wondering what they did with the vault in the bank, and they're using that as their walk-in, which is interesting.
Wow.
Ivy, if I may, real quick, for Dave Engelhardt, the thing I find interesting on this building, and tell me what I'm missing, but there's only one door. So is it an eat-in establishment as well?
No,
It is not, okay.
it is not.
This is the last weekend coming up for the holiday activities in Berlin, so Saturday and Sunday, Merry Marketplace, variety of vendors, Saturday and Sunday, both days, Santa, 10 to 1, free carriage rides, 11 to 3. And also planning with Tim on the events. I put in my report for New Year's Eve. If you have any questions about that, please ask me. And very happy that the curb has finally been repaired. That was a tripping hazard right there in front of the Berlin Welcome Center. So the State Highway Administration has come out to fix that curb. That's the extent of my report tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for our Economic and Community Development Director, Ivy Wells? All right, up next is our Deputy Town Administrator, Mary Bolt.
Just quickly remind everybody that the next 2 Thursdays and Fridays, town offices will be closed for Christmas and New Year's holidays. Not this week, but the next 2.
Thank you. Any questions for our Deputy Town Administrator? All right, up next is agenda item number 11, comments from the council. We'll start with Vice President Burrell.
I would just like to echo the sentiments of the chief related to the Christmas parade. It was a wonderful, well-planned, well-executed event. And yet I noticed the safety measures that have been taken to ensure the safety of the crowd, and I appreciate those very, very much. And I especially enjoyed the participation of the mayor and council. I don't know about you guys, but I had a ball.
I think we all had a ball.
I had a ball, it was a blast, and I was so sorry that I read the email wrong where Troy said that he would be riding his buddy.
I read that incorrectly also, and I thought he was going to be on his motorbike,
but I had a ball.
Hopefully we'll have everybody there again next year. It'll be fun. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Councilmember Purnell?
I would echo the same thing. That was a great time. It was awesome. I never wanted to walk the parade before in my life, but that was a great time to walk.
Will you walk again, Troy?
That's one thing, sure.
All right.
That was one thing. The second thing is, I realized that we have not given any employee bonuses out for the last 2 years. I saw in 2016 we gave them $500, we gave them $517. In 2018 we gave $750. And 19 we took everything away, including the BJ's card and some other stuff. I'd like to see the $500 reinstated for this year, pulled out of the contingencies for each department. And I'd like to make a motion.
Why don't we put those numbers together and we'll present that at our next.
$500, about $37,400, and there's room in all the contingency fund from what I know. And I don't want to wait. I want to do it tonight for you.
So
I think that the one thing to say is that we do give a holiday bonus card of, it is in the form of a gift card of $50 currently. I would say that if you're wanting to look at possibly reinstating those bonuses that used to be done in years past, that you allow us to be able to put those numbers together, and then we can bring that up at our next meeting.
I got those numbers
You
together.
know, our next meeting will be
January.
in January.
That's correct.
So, did you make a motion?
I did.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Purnell and a second by Councilmember Burrell to provide each employee with a $500 bonus.
One-time
It's a
payment.
one-time payment, no bonus.
One-time payment.
A one-time payment, and that total would come to
Around $37,400.
$37,400. And is that accurate?
Yeah.
Finance Director?
I'm looking at the number of employees, hold on just a moment. Please,
Yeah, please, as long as you need.
and I've got to do a little bit of ciphering to make sure.
I
don't have enough
That's
time.
what Jeff used to do.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Yes.
Bear with me just a second. And the number you have, Troy, again, is what?
37,400.
Mayor, I think that's pretty daggone close. I say pretty close. I'm looking at the number of employees. What I don't know sitting here is that number 500 times the number of employees we're fine. But we normally inflate that, and that might be where you come up with this 37. We inflate, because it's grossed up, meaning that,
Right.
meaning that taxes are absorbed by the employee, or not the employee. So that's, I think we're within, we're within $1,000.
And your recommendation is to pull this out of contingency of,
Each department.
and from what I recall, the stormwater fund has very little contingency, is that correct?
It's only 2 employees at 5 plus a little tail, it would just be 1,000, and I believe if there is I can pull the budget.
The stormwater fund
Has
contingency is
contingency,
7,800.
right, it has over 7,000.
And are we okay in the funds for water and sewer
Yes,
and electric?
yes.
Okay. And,
So-
yeah, there's the motion, so, if there are any questions, go ahead and ask them now, if not, I'll pull the vote.
Well, it's not really a question, I mean, of course, I wanna be able to celebrate with our staff, but, my only thing is, this is the middle of a budget, year, so I would encourage, well, I would ask that we, kind of follow Councilmember Purnell's thought process on getting, let's talk about this again at budget time, so that we're not necessarily in the middle of a budget year, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
His recommendation is to move forward with that
Is
this
it?
evening.
Is that the recommendation?
His recommendation is to.
I thought it was
is
a
to do it
one-time.
Tonight, one time, tonight. Vote on it,
Right, but I
make it
mean,
happen today.
and then something, we can talk about it at the budget time for the future years.
For the future
No, I
years.
agree, definitely, but we need to discuss it again.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
fine.
that's the most financially prudent, is to do that during budget time.
Hey, Troy, I would disagree in the amount, given the fact that it's an unbudgeted item, I would recommend we do 250, not 500 this year, since we're just starting it back up.
Alright, so let's pull the vote of the motion that's on the table. So we have a $500 motion on the table by Councilmember Purnell, and a second by Councilmember Burrell. And then if that fails, we can always look at different options.
Well, Troy, are you willing to compromise?
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised, that's where I am.
I'm freezing.
Griswold needs the pool.
Call
I think we need to take a vote on the motion that's on the table first.
The motion on the table is $500.
That is correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? I didn't hear anything out of the bottom row. Is that a correct assumption?
I feel like I need 30 seconds to process this. We're looking, $37,000 you said? And it's
That's
coming
across all the funds.
across
So
all the funds.
hold on, let me summarize the vote. We had 2 in favor, and that is Purnell and Burrell. And I had 3 that did not vote, so we'll count that as an abstention, the motion failed. Is that not an accurate assumption?
I don't know if I'd say that's
I was
accurate.
gonna
I felt like I needed 30 seconds to process.
I was gonna oppose the 500.
Okay, now I'm confused. So when we pulled the vote, I didn't hear anything out of the bottom row.
I would not prefer, I think the 250 is reasonable, following your suggestion.
So you oppose?
So I am abstaining from the 500.
So I have an abstention. Let's pull this roll call. Councilmember Burrell for the $500 motion. Councilmember Purnell, $500 motion.
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, $500 motion.
Aye, I agree with that.
Councilmember Orris, $500 motion.
I'm abstaining from that.
Abstention. Councilmember Nur, $500 motion.
Opposed.
Opposed. So the motion carries with Councilmember Burrell, Purnell, and Nichols voting in favor. An opposed vote by Councilmember Nur, and an abstention by Councilmember Orris.
Now, just so I'm clear, the $50 gift card will not be.
No, the $50 gift card is already sent. Yeah, we sent that in time for Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I got that at Thanksgiving. Employees received that already last month.
And that was approved in FY '22 budget.
It's actually been improved for like the last 25 years. That or Turkey.
And it's long gone.
So,
Right, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't like there was one coming in this week's paycheck. That's what I wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
all right, Councilmember Nur, comments from the council.
No comments.
Okay, Councilmember Orris, comments from the council.
Yes, and I will be very, very brief. I just want to, echo the parade. It was great. Everybody seemed to have a good time. I want to give a shout out, because that's the professional way to say it, to the Chamber of Commerce for taking the torch on the exterior illumination tour. Today was the last day to sign up for that, but you can go around and check out the house decorations that are out there. I want to give a quick thank you to all those involved with getting the term expiry dates on the website and coordinating that with D3. I think, Mary, that was maybe your
I have paid
shop.
those, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And I just want to wish everyone a happy, safe, healthy holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy holidays. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Nichols.
First off, I love the new vehicles that the police department has. They're cute. The chief is cute. Thank you very much. It's very nice, and I do appreciate your having driven behind us and having blown the horn at me during the parade because I was moving too slow. But that's okay. Like the guy said, riding in the parade or being present in the parade, down walking amongst each other, I thought that was great. If nothing else, it was, the town was able to see us in our truest form. Us together, laughing, talking, having a memorable moment as the people that we are, and that was great. Great job you ladies did with the parade. It was phenomenal. And those doggone lights, Tim, I will say this for the record, I did not think that we should have put the lights back up, but had they not been up, I don't think I would have seen as many faces as I saw walking through that parade. So they definitely illuminate the town. So the lights, they're nice. Have a great holiday. I hope that everything we've done tonight was, good. I hope everyone enjoys the holiday season.
Thank you. Up next is agenda item number 12, comments from the mayor. The only thing I would like to add, outside of all the good things that we've heard about the Christmas parade, is I don't know if everybody got to hear the song by the Chow Elementary School, but what they put together, I think, was very moving and a nice addition to the parade. So thank you to the faculty of Chow Elementary and the students that sung that song. I also want to thank our town staff that did come in and help operate the parade, and our volunteers, and the judges and everybody. So that was quite an event, and I think it went off very well. It was nice to have the council join the mayor's office and walking through. It was something that I hope we can continue. The demo grant, I do want to say congratulations. That's a huge achievement for the town. Additionally, I do want to thank our delegations, so Senator Mary Beth Perosa, Delegate Otto, and Delegate Hartman, all three wrote letters of support for that grant application, so thank you, that goes a long way. As well as Secretary Holt, who definitely has an interest in the town of Berlin and took time to really understand that project. I just want to echo the happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody, and we'll see each other at the start of the new year. So up next, I think comments from the public, if anybody's still in attendance for our marathon. No. And then comments from the press. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. I heard additional ayes in there.
I know when that hand goes up.
Yes. No.
Oh, yeah.
I turned over a new leaf.
My crutches. Oh, they're right there.
I just grabbed two.
You.
So what? You and your cute vehicle.
Freeze. You can't say.
I just got to Thank you.
I think it's a chair too.